They laughed at my table. My wife and the man she swore was just a friend. But that night I smiled too, because I already knew. I knew his name, his secret, and the hotel he thought I'd never find. So when I called his name at dinner, silence fell like thunder. If you've ever trusted someone who broke you, hit that like button because this story is for you. I used to think love was supposed to feel steady, like the calm after a storm. With Alara, it did. For 8 years, our mornings began with shared coffee, quiet smiles, and the kind of silence that felt safe, not empty. I believed we understood each other without needing to speak. That was before the silence started to sound different, before it began to feel like a cover for something else. It started subtly, the kind of changes you don't notice until they've already taken root. She began coming home later. Meetings ran long, she'd say, her voice soft, her eyes tired. I didn't question her. I didn't want to. You see, when you trust someone, you protect their lies without even realizing it. You convince yourself the unease in your gut is paranoia, not instinct. Then came the perfume, one I'd never smelled before. A scent that didn't belong to me or to her. It lingered on her skin when she kissed my cheek goodnight, sweet, sharp, and foreign. I tried to ignore it. But that's the thing about denial. It's a slow poison that numbs you just enough to make the pain tolerable. Her laughter changed too. It used to be open, full of warmth, the kind that filled a room. But lately, it came in whispers, muffled behind closed doors or over her phone when she thought I was asleep. And those late texts, I'd see the screen light up at midnight, a soft glow slicing through the darkness. Her face would turn away, her smile guarded. I started sleeping less. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the way she used to hold my hand at dinner, or lean against me during movies. Those memories began to feel like echoes, fading, distant, unreal. One night, she came home smelling faintly of rain and wine. Her hair was messy, her lipstick smudged. When I asked how her meeting went, she smiled that easy smile I'd fallen 4 years ago and said, "Productive." Then she kissed my forehead and walked away. Just like that, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I remember standing there, frozen in our kitchen, staring at her half-empty wine glass. There were 2 lipstick stains on the rim. 2, not 1. That was the moment my heart broke, not from anger, but from clarity. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just watched her walk down the hallway and realized something painfully simple. I was living beside a stranger, who still wore my wife's face. And in that quiet, something inside me shifted. The ache turned cold, sharp, deliberate. That's when I decided I wouldn't chase the truth anymore. I'd let it come to me. Because no lie survives forever, especially when it sleeps beside you. When you start suspecting the person you love, every small thing turns into evidence. A glance, a delay in answering, a sigh that feels rehearsed. All of it starts to sting differently. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, but her stories began to fall apart faster than she could rebuild them. The unease inside me wasn't paranoia anymore. It was recognition. Something was wrong, and she was working hard to make sure I didn't see it. One night, after she claimed she'd be working late again, I found myself staring at her parked car location on my phone. I had quietly installed a tracking app weeks ago, not because I wanted to spy, but because I needed peace. But that night, peace wasn't what I found. The dot blinked from a place that wasn't her office. It was a small boutique hotel, tucked away near the old district. My pulse went still. I sat there, watching the screen, watching her stay in that same spot for 3 hours. I didn't rush there. I didn't call. I just watched. It's strange when betrayal starts to take shape, it doesn't come with anger first. It comes with silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I stayed awake until I saw the dot move again. When she came home past midnight, she smelled faintly of rain and something floral. Not her perfume, not mine. Something unfamiliar. She kissed my cheek and went straight to shower. I stood there watching her purse on the counter. That's when I noticed it. Her phone half slid out. I shouldn't have, but I did. I opened it. The chat was hidden under a work contact. I opened the thread and my chest went numb. Messages filled the screen, I miss you already. Same time next week. Don't worry, he'll never find out. And then, the name, Eli. It looked so harmless typed there, just 3 letters. But it tore something in me. I took screenshots, transferred them to my drive, and closed her phone carefully, the same way you'd close a coffin. The next day, I smiled at her like nothing had changed. I made breakfast, kissed her forehead, told her she looked beautiful. She smiled back, thinking she still had me fooled. But behind my calm voice, a storm had started to build. I knew who he was now. I just needed to see him. That weekend, she said she had another work retreat. I followed the car again. The same hotel. Same pattern. This time I drove there too, but I didn't confront them. I parked at a distance, watching through the reflection of the glass doors as she walked inside, laughing with him. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake, because the truth wasn't running from me anymore. I was walking straight toward it. After that night outside the hotel, I stopped being the man who waited for answers. I already had them. Every lie, every whisper, every late-night excuse, it all pointed to the same truth. Ilara was gone long before she ever left our home. But I wasn't ready to just let her walk away clean. Not after the way she smiled at me every morning like I was too blind to notice. I wanted her to see what real exposure felt like. Not through shouting, not through violence, but through silence, sharp enough to cut. So I planned something she'd never forget. I called it a celebration dinner. Told her I'd been promoted at work, which was true, and that I wanted to host a few close friends and family. She looked at me with surprise first, then relief, like she was convincing herself that maybe I was still the naive husband she could fool. I smiled back, letting her believe exactly that. For the next few days, I prepared everything down to the smallest detail. I chose her favorite restaurant, booked the private dining room, even asked for her favorite flowers on the table. Everything needed to look perfect, the kind of perfection that hides the coming storm. I sent out invitations, including one special guest she didn't know about, Eli, the man who thought he'd stolen her heart in secret. Getting him there wasn't difficult. I used a different number, posed as a potential client looking to discuss a business opportunity over dinner. He agreed almost immediately. That told me everything I needed to know about his greed and his confidence, 2 things that never survive long under light. The night of the dinner arrived. Ilara spent hours getting ready, humming softly in front of the mirror. I watched her reflection, the same soft features, the same calm smile, and wondered how long she'd been practicing that expression. I wore my best suit and even brought her flowers. We drove together, her hand occasionally brushing mine, as if trying to reassure herself everything was fine. At the restaurant, I greeted everyone warmly. We laughed, shared stories, toasted to new beginnings. Ilara seemed at ease again, her guard lowered. I kept my tone light. But inside, my heart was steady. Not racing, not breaking, just waiting. Because this wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth. And truth, I'd learned, tastes better when it's served in front of everyone who believed your lie. As the evening unfolded, I kept glancing toward the door, counting down the moments until my uninvited guest arrived. The perfect setup was almost complete, and the man who thought he was safe, he had no idea he was walking straight into my dinner. I remember that moment, the dinner table glowing under soft light, laughter echoing just enough to feel normal. Ilara sat across from me, radiant in a silver dress, the kind she used to wear when she still wanted to impress me. Her eyes sparkled, but there was something behind them, a tension, a flicker of guilt maybe. I smiled at her, poured her wine, and pretended not to notice how her hand trembled slightly when she lifted the glass. It was almost poetic how she tried to keep everything so composed. She laughed at every joke, touched my arm when I spoke, and smiled for the crowd like a devoted wife. But I could see it, the small moments where her mask slipped, the way her eyes darted to her phone each time it buzzed, the way she exhaled quietly when I didn't react. She thought she was safe. Then the door opened. The sound cut through the chatter like a blade. Everyone turned. I didn't have to. I already knew who it was. My chest tightened, but not with anger, with satisfaction. I stood up slowly, greeted the man at the door, and said with the calmest voice I'd ever used, "Everyone, meet Eli. He's been helping Alara with her late-night projects." Eli froze, his confidence collapsing in real time. Alara's fork slipped from her hand, clattering against her plate. The sound was louder than it should have been. Her face went pale, a shade I'd never seen before. For a second, she looked at me as if she didn't recognize me. I walked around the table, placing a hand on Eli's shoulder like I was introducing an old friend. "You're just in time," I said. "We were about to start dessert," he stammered, his voice shaking. "Darian, I think there's a misunderstanding." Lara's voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, don't." But it was too late. I looked her in the eye and asked quietly, "How long, Alara? How long have I been the fool at my own table?" No one spoke. The air felt heavy, thick with disbelief. Eli tried to rise, but I blocked his way, not with force, just presence. "Sit down," I said softly. "You wanted a night with her? Here it is." Lara's tears came fast. She reached for me, begging under her breath. "I'm sorry. Please." I stepped back, calm as ice. "No, Alara, don't be sorry for me. Be sorry that you believed I'd never call his name at dinner." And in that silence, every secret, every lie she ever told finally echoed back to her. The room didn't breathe for a moment. It was like time had stopped, trapping everyone between disbelief and discomfort. I stood there, watching Alara's perfect world crack open. Her painted smile vanished, replaced by a trembling confusion she could no longer hide. The guests looked from her to me, unsure if this was a cruel joke or a confession unraveling before them. Eli sat frozen, his hands tightening around the edge of his chair. He didn't dare look at her. I could see the panic behind his eyes, the realization that his secret had just turned into a stage play, and he was standing in the spotlight. Alara finally spoke, her voice thin, almost shaking. "Darian, please, not here." I smiled, calm and almost gentle. "Why not here, Alara? You brought your lies into this home, into my life, into every room I ever loved you in. Why not let the truth dine with us too?" The guests whispered among themselves, awkward, uncertain. The tension was unbearable. One of my friends tried to diffuse it with nervous laughter, but I didn't break eye contact with her. I wanted her to see it, the calm in my eyes that came only when the storm had passed inside me. Eli finally stood up, muttering, "I should go." I stepped in front of him. Not angry, just still. "You finish your meal, Eli," I said quietly. "You started this at my table. You'll end it here." He sat back down slowly, his face pale. Alara burst into tears, standing up, shouting now. "You don't understand, Darian. You were never there for me." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. That hurt not the words, but how rehearsed they sounded. Like she had already built this excuse long before I discovered the truth. I didn't respond. I didn't yell. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table, the screen showing her messages, her pictures, her promises to him. Gasps echoed across the table. The truth didn't need my voice anymore. It spoke for itself. Eli whispered something under his breath, but Alara turned on him, shouting, "You said no one would ever find out." Her hand flew before she realized it, a sharp slap across his face. The sound snapped through the silence. He stared at her, humiliated, angry, trapped. I just watched detached. My revenge wasn't in the drama, it was in their collapse, their unraveling right where they thought they were safe. When it was finally over, I turned to leave. No shouting, no farewell. Just a calm line I left behind like a scar. "You both underestimated quiet men." And with that, I walked out, leaving them sitting in the ruins of their own creation. The night after that dinner, the silence in my house was louder than any argument could have been. Alara had packed a few things and left before sunrise. I didn't stop her. I didn't even watch her go. There's something strangely satisfying about knowing the person who shattered you now has to live with the sound of that break forever. I just sat at the table, staring at the two empty chairs where they once sat, her lipstick-stained glass still there, his untouched plate still warm. For days she tried to reach me, calls, messages, long apologies that started with please and ended with, You have to understand." I didn't respond. There's no closure for betrayal, only distance. So I gave her that. Distance so wide that even her guilt couldn't cross it. What she didn't know was that my silence wasn't the end of my revenge. It was only the beginning. Before that dinner, I'd already moved every shared fund, every asset, every connection tied to her. I'd spoken to my lawyer a week earlier, a clean divorce, swift and quiet. I didn't want her name attached to mine for even a second longer than necessary. But Eli, he wasn't done paying yet. The man she risked everything for had built his own reputation on trust, on respectability. Turns out, his company wasn't fond of scandals, especially when they involved a married woman and leaked messages. I didn't need to ruin him myself. I just had to let the truth breathe. A few screenshots found their way to the right inboxes, and within days, Eli's world began to crumble. I never raised my voice, never made a public scene. I simply let the truth do the work I never needed to. It's poetic, really, how lies collapse under their own weight. A week later, I saw Alara again, briefly. She showed up at my office, eyes swollen, voice trembling. "We made mistakes," she whispered. "Can't we fix it?" I looked at her, the woman I once planned a lifetime with, and realized I felt nothing. No hate, no love, just peace. I told her some things don't need fixing, Alara. They need to end. She cried, but I didn't stay to comfort her. She'd found comfort elsewhere long before. That night, I poured myself a drink and stood by the window, watching the city lights blur in the distance. It hit me. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. All I did was open the door and let the consequences walk in. Revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet, precise, complete, and it tasted like freedom. Months have passed since that night, but I still remember every detail, the tension, the silence, the look on her face when she realized her secret had finally run out of places to hide. Time didn't erase it, but it did something better. It reshaped it. The anger that once kept me awake at night turned into something quieter, steadier, peace. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. I moved into a smaller apartment downtown. The kind of place that doesn't echo with memories. There's no trace of her here. No photographs, no perfume lingering in the air, no half-finished mugs of coffee beside mine. Just space. Space to breathe, to heal, to rediscover who I was before I became the man waiting for apologies that never came. People say revenge doesn't fix anything, but I think they misunderstand what revenge really is. It isn't about hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your voice after they tried to silence it. I didn't need to destroy Alara or Eli. They were already carrying the weight of what they'd done. I just stepped out of the way and let gravity finish the job. From what I've heard, Eli lost his job shortly after that night. His spotless reputation couldn't survive the scandal. He moved away, started over somewhere quieter, somewhere no one knew his name. Alara, on the other hand, tried to rebuild her image, joined charity events, posted photos of herself smiling with friends, pretending she was fine, but her eyes gave her away. Guilt has a way of living behind your eyes, no matter how many filters you hide it under. As for me, I started traveling. Paris first, then Kyoto, then places I'd only ever seen in magazines. There's something freeing about waking up in a new city where no one knows your story. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since college. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like half of something broken. I felt whole, quietly and completely. One evening, sitting by the Seine, I watched the sunset dissolve into gold and thought about her. Not with bitterness, but gratitude. If she hadn't betrayed me, I might have never found this version of myself. The one who learned that closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from acceptance. So, if you've ever been betrayed, don't chase revenge. Just stand still. Let truth do what truth always does. Return everything to balance. Because karma isn't loud. It doesn't rush. But when it arrives, it never misses.